All right, let's get your calls on today's daily poll question, which is, should Illinois ban certain types of guns and magazines? Yes or no? And you can, of course, elaborate a bit on that question by calling in live and local at 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com or find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we can connect that way. Earlier this program, way in the 6 o'clock hour, just with as much as we've got going on each and every Wednesday, we reviewed a lot of the nearly 5-hour hearing yesterday. Yeah, they heard from Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart, who brought props with him, and they, laid out their support for banning certain types of weapons. And this was obviously, law enforcement from larger urban areas pushing for these things. But you had opponents there as well. In particular, the Illinois State Rifle Association testified saying that they're not going to negotiate on this bill, saying that banning guns is that red line that they're just not going to cross. You had Todd Vandermeide there. He's the former NRA lobbyist. He also was a lobbyist for the Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois, the organization that represents gun stores. But as a retired individual, he was there testifying, talking about how the U.S. Supreme Court has really changed the landscape on how courts need to rule on the Second Amendment. It's no longer a balancing approach of saying, well, yeah, we can curb constitutional civil rights if it makes people feel better, if it makes people feel safer. That was the balancing approach that they used to take, but the U.S. Supreme Court recently, with a case out of New York, said that that's no longer acceptable, and that balanced approach of, well, we can curb constitutional civil rights if it makes people feel better, that's been thrown out, and the table's been reset. And essentially, the U.S. Supreme Court has made it clear that it's text and tradition, meaning that the text and tradition of the Second Amendment was a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. So I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number again. The daily poll question, it uses the language of the proposal, calling things assault weapons, calling things high-capacity magazines. The actual definition in the legislation says large capacity ammunition feeding devices. But regardless, should Illinois ban the sale of certain types of guns and magazines? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, morning, Greg. How's it going?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Hey, the way technology has come and engineering practices and everything, I think it's kind of silly that you would carry a gun with anything less than like 10 rounds. So if we're going to ban anything, I want people to be safe, and you want as many bullets as you can have in your pocket. I think anything less than 10 should be, strictly to the range.
Well, I mean, listen, gun owners know that it's hard to find a pistol, a modern pistol nowadays that has 10 or fewer rounds in the magazine, because most modern pistols nowadays, it's 14 rounds in the magazine, it's 15, maybe some have 17 rounds in the magazine, and that's all over the place. So if you were to ban these types of magazines, you're essentially putting the potential of hundreds of thousands, if not 2+ million people in the state of Illinois that would have to register their firearms with state police, let alone if they have more than one, magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, they could find themselves facing a felony.
Yep. No, I think we should ban the little magazines. More bullets.
All right, I appreciate the call. Kind of tongue-in-cheek there, but I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, your thoughts. This is a subject that's not going to go away. They had the third hearing yesterday, and the sponsor of the measure hopes to get it across the finish line by January 10th, but yesterday's nearly 5-hour-long hearing heard from law enforcement. Some of them, not all law enforcement support this, but the big urban areas like Cook County, they support it. Tom Dart saying that we need to have this now. But you had opponents there as well, and that needs to be reported. The opponents of this need to be heard, and too often we hear the reporting coming out of certain media outlets that says, oh, it's just, all the supporters and the glowing praise for the legislation. It's the supporters and law enforcement support banning weapons, and that's not the case. The case is there's plenty of opposition out there, and I want to hear from you if you oppose it, and I want to hear from you if you support it. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, Bishop.
Hey.
The sheriff, Cook County, said that they've confiscated 1,100 weapons this year.
It was up there. Yeah, it was 1,100, 1,400. I can't remember exactly.
Okay. Well, if they're confiscating that weapon, either that person can't have it legally or they're using it illegally.
Right.
So if you ban it, it's not the people who break the law are not going to change. They're going to keep having them. All you're going to do is make it tougher for the guy who does obey the law.
Yeah, and you're going to make them jump through more hoops, and that's something that the gun owner rights advocates said is they're sick and tired of being blamed for the actions of psychopaths. But the supporters of these gun bans say that, well, we need to limit the amount of accessibility to these so psychopaths can't get them. Well, the state of Illinois does have those provisions in place, like the FOID card, which is clear has not worked in a lot of these instances, including the Aurora mass shooting and the shooting in Highland Park.
Yeah, I asked Jim Leach this last night. Maybe if you have a magazine that's more than 10 rounds, you will also have to register that magazine.
There is nothing in the law or nothing in the bill. It's not a law yet, but there's nothing in the bill about grandfathering in the magazines of 10 or more. It does have in there provisions about registering the semi-automatic guns that are on this list, but nothing in there about registering the magazines. It just simply says that the possession of the magazines would be unlawful. And you could get anywhere from a Class A misdemeanor to up to a Class 2 felony, which is pretty severe. And that would take away an individual's rights to vote.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous because right now I've got a little 380 that holds 12.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's all kinds of pistols out there that come from the factory. Right. Stock magazine is over 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the call, 217-629-7970. We'll get to one more here before the break. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I oppose the bill, Bishop. I don't like it, man, because the gang members, I mean, they already have the weapons, dude. No law put in place is going to change that.
Well, I think one law that could possibly happen is just to ban all guns, and you can't do that. We have a Second Amendment right in this country, a well-regulated militia, which does not mean more laws, and anybody who says that doesn't necessarily understand what a well-regulated militia means. But a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what the Second Amendment says.
Yeah. We should have the right to defend ourselves against this. I mean, look at what happened in Nazi Germany. They were taking everybody's guns. They had no way to defend themselves against the military.
Well, but what's your reaction to those who say, well, the federal government's got drones, they've got nukes? So what's your reaction?
And it wouldn't be a fair fight, that's for sure. But I feel like if something did pop up that we needed to arm ourselves and defend ourselves against our own country, I feel like the more armed citizens, the better our chances. I mean,
and it's not just the idea of a tyrannical government taking over in this country. If you look at some of the text and tradition in the history of the Second Amendment and the development of it throughout the years over in the late 17th century, when they were crafting this, it was about protecting the citizenry from standing armies and saying that you had to have quick, accessible firearms in order for the security of a free state. And that standing army could be a foreign occupation coming to this land, and that seems to be what the founding fathers were trying to push against, and ensuring that individuals had ready access to firearms. And sidearms are different than bazookas. Sidearms are different than jets. Sidearms are different from tanks and nuclear weapons. Sidearms are pistols. rifles and shotguns. And that seems to be what the Second Amendment really is focused on. Appreciate everybody's call on this, and if you want to sound off more, we will definitely be covering this a lot.